80% of all new private investigators close up shop before their 12th month. That's a staggering number, isn't it? And it's not because they lose their subjects in traffic surveillance or because the cheating spouse figures out that they're being tailed. No, it's usually for a reason far more mundane and, frankly, far more frustrating, to be sure. One huge reason to PI failure is that they cannot figure out how to invoice clients properly. I'm not talking about the invoice format, even though that can play a role in how successful your accounts receivable are. I am talking about sending invoices without sounding desperate. And another surefire way to ensure your PI business fails is simply not knowing how to run your PI business. If those statistics feel kind of like a gut punch, well, stick around. Over the next 12 minutes or so, I will arm you with the insights you need to avoid becoming another casualty. This isn't just about surviving, folks. It's about building a thriving, resilient, successful private investigations business. I have been running my PI and process serve business for almost 2 decades now, and prior to that, I spent almost my entire adult life building businesses of all sizes, large-scale corporations, medium-sized startups, and mom-and-pop style businesses, as well as making millionaires millions. And believe me, I still remember the taste of ramen noodles, beans and rice, and macaroni and cheese dinners from way back when I first got started as a PI. My first few years were scary, folks. There were plenty of times when my business was bleeding off more money than what was coming in. And that first year, trust me, I had my moments where I felt like it was all teetering on the edge of collapse. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. I've been there, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if I made the biggest mistake of my life. But I learned, often the hard way, what it takes to not just survive, but to truly succeed in this wild and often unpredictable industry. Today, I'm not going to give you theoretical fluff or war stories. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the critical mistakes that most PI businesses do that make them fail, plus tools and knowledge that you need to avoid these critical mistakes. Here is the first rookie business owner mistake that most new PIs struggle with right out of the gate. Thinking your daily and weekly and monthly income is your bottom line, your profit. So many times new PIs will quote something like 80 bucks an hour, land a 40-hour domestic case, and then stare at that $3,200 deposit like they've just won the lottery. They feel a rush, a sense of accomplishment, but then reality sinks in. That initial excitement quickly fades when they start factoring in things like mileage, insurance premiums, subscription fees to all those super secret PI databases, and the investigative software applications that they use, report writing software, and of course, the ever-present shadow of taxes. Suddenly, half of that profit just goes up in smoke. Poof, it vaporizes. They never priced for actual profit. They priced simply to get the job, to make themselves busy, to get their foot in the door, hoping things would magically sort themselves out. Let's do some quick and painful math, folks. If you bill 40 hours but actually spend 20 more on things like meticulous report writing, endless client handholding, court preparation, all the administrative tasks, your true effective hourly rate isn't 80 bucks. It's actually closer to $40 or $50 an hour. Now subtract self-employment tax, general liability insurance, wear and tear, and fuel for your vehicle. And what are you netting? Probably around $30 an hour, and that's barely above minimum wage in some places. Certainly not the kind of compensation that you would expect for the high-stakes, demanding work of a private investigator. You're essentially working for retailer wages, but with significantly more stress and risk. It's a classic case of misunderstanding the true cost of doing business, confusing revenue with actual take-home pay. Many PIs fail to account for the hidden costs, the time spent on administrative tasks, client acquisition, professional development, and even just the wear and tear on your vehicle and your equipment. And guess what? These aren't optional extras. They are integral to keeping your business afloat. The fix, thankfully, is stupidly simple, but it requires a shift in mindset. You need to reverse engineer your annual target. Don't just pick a number out of thin air. Instead, ask yourself, what do I really want to clear after all of the expenses and taxes? Want a six-figure income? Great. That means you need to generate roughly $8,300 a month after all of your operational costs and personal taxes are covered. Now, if your average case nets you, let's say, $1,100, you don't just need whatever falls from the sky. You need 8 cases a month consistently. This isn't about hoping, dreaming, and wishful thinking. It's about planning, forecasting, holding yourself accountable, and a lot of hard work. It is starting to sound sort of like a real job, wouldn't you say? When I finally ran that calculation on a napkin myself, I found myself staring at some very grim numbers. Then I raised my rates about 30% the very next morning, and guess what? I lost 0 clients. Why? Because good clients pay for expertise. They pay for peace of mind. They do not just go out for the lowest bid. Good clients understand the value that you bring, and they're willing to pay for it. Don't undersell your worth because you're afraid of losing a client. The clients you lose by raising your rates probably weren't your ideal clients anyway. Now let's take a good look at the old regulatory guillotine. This one is a silent killer, and it can chop your career off at the knees before you ever even realize what's happening. Many states have incredibly strict laws governing what PIs can and cannot do. For example, 17 states will fine you for the first unsolicited phone recording, and 2 states, they'll yank your license on the very first offense, just like that. Yet every single week I see newbies bragging on Facebook groups about their creative pretexts that dangerously border on impersonation. Then they think they're being clever, resourceful, and effective. But here's the ugly truth. The state doesn't care that you meant well when you pretended to be an HR person to confirm employment, or that you were just trying to get a quick piece of information for your client. One complaint, one single misstep, and you've got a file number and a hearing date on your desk. And trust me, your insurance carrier will drop you faster than a hot skillet. Operating without proper licensing is another huge blunder I see all the time. I know it sounds basic, but you'd be shocked how many PIs either let their license lapse or worse, operate in states where they aren't properly licensed or registered. This isn't just a slap on the wrist, folks. It can lead to criminal charges, huge penalties, massive civil liability, and utterly destroy your professional reputation. The legal landscape for PIs is a minefield that is constantly shifting, and ignorance is absolutely no defense. You have to be meticulous about understanding and adhering to the specific licensing requirements in every jurisdiction you operate in. My advice: stay boring. Seriously, memorize your state's surveillance laws and regulations. Keep a laminated one-page summary of critical regulations on your desk and in your field bag for reference, and refresh that knowledge annually because laws do change. When a client asks for something that feels even slightly gray zone, don't hem and haw about it. Hand them the state code, point to the relevant section, and say, "I'm happy to help you, but only within these guidelines." The clients who walk away, they were never good for your business anyway. Let some other sap PI out there deal with them. They were just looking for someone to cut corners, save them a few bucks, and that's liability you do not need. Now let's take a close look at what we refer to as the cash flow roller coaster. PI work, by its very nature, is feast or famine year in and year out. It's just how the game works. The feast feels amazing, doesn't it? You land a big retainer, the bank account looks healthy, and you feel like you are on top of the world. Then suddenly you realize that massive retainer hit your account the same week quarterly taxes are due, and your car's transmission just blew up. Without a proper financial buffer, you end up robbing Peter to pay Paul, juggling bills, and then inevitably leaning on high interest credit cards at 18% or more. This isn't just stressful, it's a drain on your profits and a huge source of anxiety. And it's why so many PIs take on less than ideal cases or work ridiculous hours just to keep the lights on. I solved this problem with two simple bank accounts and one ironclad rule. Every single deposit that comes in without exception gets 20% siphoned off into a dedicated tax only account. This money is untouchable, earmarked solely for Uncle Sam. Then another 10% goes into an emergency contingency account. This fund builds up until it holds a minimum of 6 months of overhead expenses. Only the remaining 70% hits the operating account and is available for daily business expenses. Is it sexy? Absolutely not. Is it necessary? Absolutely yes. It takes discipline and meticulous foresight. But it keeps me from becoming the desperate PI who takes a cheating spouse case at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday because the electricity bill is past due and the client is willing to pay cash up front. This system ensures you have the financial stability to say no to bad clients, to weather slow periods, and to invest in your business when opportunity arises. It's about proactive financial management, not reactive scrambling. Now let's look at the isolation epidemic of being a PI. Let's be honest, folks, being a PI can be a lonely job at times, to be sure. You spend countless nights alone, behind dark tinted windows, staking out your subject, fueled by lukewarm coffee, if you're really lucky, and candy bars and stale snacks. You may spend days alone at your keyboard, sifting through data, writing reports, and making phone calls. Every mistake, every misstep feels like a personal moral failure because there's often no one else in the trenches with you. Most newbies enter this field with no mentor, no seasoned veteran to guide them. So what do? They crowdsource strategy in random Discord servers and Facebook groups where half of the advice is flat out illegal, unethical, or just plain wrong. This isn't mentorship, it's a recipe for disaster. You need genuine guidance, not just opinions. The solution is to build a personal board of advisors, if you will, before you desperately need it. I think of it as your personal SWAT team for business and professional challenges. Who should be on it? Check out your state PI association and go to some of those meetings. Meet some of those veteran PIs out there. Many state associations also have mentor programs where some of those veterans will mentor newbie PIs in certain areas like accounting, business operations, and marketing. Now, don't join and expect those veterans to hand you a surefire, no mistakes made here game plan for your business. Rather, build those relationships and utilize those relationships when you run into snags or need questions answered. Now, if you are starting to get worried, starting to doubt whether starting a PI business is a good thing, hang on. I will have some resources for you to take a look at here in a few minutes that will help you as you get started and help you build and maintain a successful PI business. There is this thing we often refer to as client clarity failure. Nothing, I mean nothing, erodes your profit faster than a client who changes the mission midstream. It's like trying to hit a moving target in the dark. They hire you to find dirt on their business partner, which sounds straightforward enough. Then 2 days later, they pivot to the prove embezzlement theory, which is far more complex and resource intensive. A week after that, they casually ask you if you can also just quickly pull 10 years of offshore bank records as if it's a 5-minute Google search. Each one of these pivots eats up unbilled hours, stretches your resources thin, and chips away at your original fee and your bottom line. You end up doing significantly more work than you agreed to for the same initial price, and suddenly that profitable case is barely breaking even. This insidious beast is also known as scope creep, and it is a silent killer of PI profits. The fix is simple, but again, requires discipline on your part. Put the scope of the job down on paper, just a paragraph or two in plain English. The scope needs to clearly define the objective, specific deliverables, the estimated timeline, and most importantly, the cost for extra hours or for any additional work outside the agreed scope. Then this scope must, I repeat, must go into your contract, which both you and your client will agree to and sign. The scope of the job then becomes your compass and your shield. When scope creep inevitably knocks, when the client asks for that one more little thing, you politely point to the scope which you both agreed to. You can then offer an amendment or a new agreement with a new retainer to collect to cover those new requests. And you know what? Professionals will respect those boundaries that you set. They will understand that additional work means additional cost. Amateurs, the not so professional, on the other hand, respect nothing and will try to get as much free work as possible. Don't be afraid to politely fire those clients who repeatedly disregard the agreement. It is better to cut ties with problematic clients early than to let them drain your resources and morale. Your time is valuable, and your business depends on you protecting it. We also need to discuss the subcontractor trap that many new PIs fall into. Eventually, you're going to land a big surveillance case that spans 3 counties or a complex investigation requiring specialized skills which you do not possess. You will need extra bodies, extra expertise. The rookie move here, grabbing any warm body with a license off of a Facebook forum. Maybe they had a catchy ad or a slogan or a low rate. Then disaster strikes. He shows up late, blows his cover because he's distracted, and then bills you for research that's clearly just a copy and pasted Google query. Your client blames you, not the subcontractor, and your reputation takes a hit. This isn't just about poor performance. It's about legal liability and quality control, and it can severely damage your business. You need to vet other PIs like the CIA, demand proof of licensing, insurance, and proof of work quality. One thing I often ask for when I'm looking at surveillance investigators is about 10 minutes of sample video from a surveillance case, along with report writing samples too. One other thing regarding subcontractors is divulging this information to your client. Many clients will assume you do all of the work yourself, and for me, well, that is definitely not the case anymore. I sub out a good deal of the work I get in, so I make sure my contract has a use of subcontractors clause in it that discloses this in plain and simple language. Make sure you also do everything you can to avoid the data disasters that can come with an investigation too. In our line of work, we handle incredibly sensitive, personal, and often legally protected information. Storing client data on an unencrypted external hard drive in your trunk is like hanging a neon sign that screams, "Please breach me." One smash and grab incident, and you're suddenly explaining to every unhappy lawyer how 300 gigabytes of medical records, financial statements, and personal communications just walked out of a broken car window. You absolutely must encrypt everything. I'm talking about your laptop, your cloud storage, every single flash drive and thumb drive you own. Every device that touches client data needs robust encryption and protection. Let's take a close look now at the marketing myths that kill many PI businesses. I hear this all the time, folks. Word of mouth is my primary marketing strategy. Well, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I wouldn't need a marketing strategy. While referrals are wonderful, relying solely on word of mouth is not a strategy, it's a prayer. It leaves you pacing the office at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, wondering why the phone isn't ringing, feeling anxious and unproductive. You're at the mercy of chance, not in control of your own destiny. Many rookies also feel intimidated by digital ads, so they blow $2, $5, $10,000 on a billboard that nobody who actually hires a PI will ever read. Or they invest in glossy magazine ads, postcard mailers, and flyers that yield zero results. Instead of all that, focus on the marketing channels you can control and dominate. Your website and your Google business profile. These are digital storefronts, and it's often the first place potential clients look. Post regular updates or write blogs about your investigations you conduct. Provide content for the search engines, but make sure that you have relevant data for prospective clients too. Here is the biggest kicker though. Ask satisfied clients for a review the very day you deliver the final report. Strike while the iron is hot. I know this is a bit intimidating, and I know the vast majority of clients you ask will never respond, let alone actually do a review. But when they give you that 5-star review, it will make a major difference in your search engine placement and how customers perceive you. You know you can be the best tail man in the street, a master of disguise, and a surveillance ninja. But if your report reads like a grocery list written by a sleepy teenager, well, the judge and the jury will laugh you right out of the stand. Attorneys, the very people who often refer cases and can make or break your career, tell me the number one reason they never rehire an investigator is sloppy report writing. We are talking about inconsistent timestamps, the overuse of passive voice, and speculation or opinion dressed up as fact. This isn't just about grammar, folks. It's about credibility. A poorly written report undermines all of your hard work, making your entire investigation seem unreliable, unbelievable, and ultimately unusable in court. Here is my basic rule of thumb for report writing. I write every single report assuming it will be read out loud in front of a jury. This mindset changes everything. Ensure your chronology perfectly matches your video timestamps and photographic evidence. And for the love of all that is factual, your conclusion section must stick strictly to observable facts and evidence, not your gut feelings or assumptions. The final killer, the final nail in the coffin for most PIs isn't an external threat. It is the quiet, almost silent voice that whispers, "You don't belong here. You can't do this. You are a lousy PI." These thoughts leave you questioning every life choice you've ever made. Folks, this job is demanding, physically and mentally. It requires immense patience, resilience, and often very thick skin. Half the battle truly is just staying in the fight long enough to get good, to build your expertise, and to refine your processes. The ones that make it to year 3, the 20%ers, they develop a ritual system of self-preservation that keeps them sane and productive. And if you can make it 3 years, you can make it 5 years. And if you can make it 5 years, you can make it 10 years. And if you can make it 10 years, you can make it a lifetime career. Being a great investigator, having those sharp skills and instincts, that's what gets you invited to the table. It's what gets you those initial cases. But being a great business owner, that's what makes you successful in this ever-growing, highly competitive world of private investigations. Now, I have a couple of resources you might want to take a look at on my website at howtobeapi.com. On my website, you can get information on my series of PI Basics books, Business Basics, Marketing Basics, and Sales Basics for private investigators, as well as my contracts for private investigators, the secrets no one else will tell you, and my PI retainer calculator. So go check them out now, howtobeapi.com.